Over the last few years, I feel like I finally entered into adulthood. At least my first car, got married to my best friend, bought a house, got a dog. And in these major transactions or events, I've been inspired by a mantra: get it in writing. And you wouldn't necessarily think that. But during this time, I've also been working for a technology company that works in the intersection of compliance and red tape and alcohol, booze. And in this weird intersection, there's a really fine line between legal advice and software. This is how you use it. This is your settings. And I kind of have a slight aversion to putting certain things into writing when I speak with our clients because there is this fine line. And yet, I love contracts. I love to read them. I love to make sure I understand what's in them. And I don't sign anything unless I've read the terms and conditions. But I've also learned that it doesn't really matter if you get something in writing if you don't actually read it. Because I've been burned by this before. So I was young, sticky, bobbed haircut and bangs, and I was crying. I was wailing. The sun was streaming through the small windows in our living room, and there was a trial taking place in the middle of the room. It's about 5:30 p.m., maybe in May or something, and my mom was cooking. I could smell the pungent spices. Onions, peppers, so hot, stung the air. Must have been Mexican. I was sitting in a winged back chair, blubbering and whining about some inconsequential injustice my brother surely did to me. While my brother, on the other hand, who was much older than I was gleefully clapping his hands together as my father, sitting at the coffee table, wrote. He was a stern man, but kind, generous. And I was leaning out of the chair, trying to see what he was writing. But I couldn't really read yet. It was more at the sound things out level. I sat there, I remember kicking my legs, letting me feel the swing of my foot back and forth. And finally, in what seemed like ages, my father presented me with my first contract. Sign here, he said. This I knew how to do. I carefully drew my letters and proudly looked at my father. He smiled back and defiantly said, "Go to your room." Because the contract had said, I, Patty Lee Lomas at the time, I promise not to fuss or cry during the hours of 5 and 8 p.m. If I do, I will go to my room. No ifs, ands, or buts. Signed, Patty Lee Lomas. 1993. And not realizing the gravity of the document I had just signed, I sulked to my room. For the next 23 years, my father proudly displayed my first contract on his bulletin board in his office and made no avoidance in bringing it up on many an occasion when voices escalated and tempers grew. So when I arrived at these adulthood events that catapulted me into the world of financing and debt and fear, I was well equipped. When the car salesman tried to convince me that the extra costs that were added were just the taxes on the car. I calculated my taxes, realized it wasn't it, and disputed the whole thing. And when my husband and I purchased our first house, I read every single disclosure and amendment and write-in and footnotes. We negotiated on price and got it lowered because of what was in the fine print. The point is, I'm thankful for this lesson because I have diligence. And this diligence helps me make me trust my decisions. Maybe adulthood isn't so bad.